So here it is, my Dell Mini 10V running Snow Leopard. As you can see, it's all up and running and working absolutely fine. To say that it wasn't scary and that it was very straightforward would be a lie. It was complicated, it was a little bit scary, but presuming you follow the instructions that are out there on the web, you shouldn't have a problem. I was using the instructions from Gizmodo. I started off naively thinking all the instructions that you read are all about putting the operating system on a USB stick. And I was thinking, well, I've got an external hard drive. I should be able to, an external DVD drive, so I should be able to just run the disk off of there. No, that does not work, so don't bother even trying. What you need to do is go through the step-by-step process, and as long as you keep exactly to what they say, you should be fine. There are one or two risky points, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. First up, you want the Dell Mini 10V. It has to be the V, otherwise you're going to have a problem. You can use a Mini 9, but it's slightly smaller and the keyboard isn't quite as nice. So personally, I prefer the 10V. I went for the 1 gig of RAM, and I didn't go for a standard hard drive. I went for a solid state drive, so I've only got 16 gigs worth of storage. There is an 8 gig one, but by the time you get the operating system on, you'll find that's probably not enough. So I've gone for the 16 gig. I hope that's going to give me enough space. We'll soon find out. The idea is basically you end up with a Mac, for all intents and purposes, for about 300 quid, which is a bit of a deal, really, in my opinion. So let's look at what you need to get it working. As you can see from the instructions here, you've got you need to have a BIOS that is running lower than A06. That is your problem, and we'll come to that in a minute. You're going to need a retail copy of Snow Leopard, not one that comes with your new Mac. It'll need to be a retail copy, and you'll need a large USB flash drive. Now, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to sort out this BIOS problem, because if you're going to get a new Dell Mini, then you're going to find that it's got too high a BIOS. Now, there are instructions in the Gizmodo article about how to do that, and really that's the most scary part. From what I can gather, is it balks completely about 1 in 100 machines that it's tried on, and that will basically leave you with a 300 quid brick. But again, I followed the instructions to the letter. Quite a time-consuming process, but ran that. And it did go fine. Now I'm a big coward when it comes to anything like BIOSes and stuff like that, but I followed the instructions and it seemed to work absolutely fine. But it was a scary moment. That once you've done that, next thing you need to do is you need to download this little bit of software called the Netbook Boot Maker, which is an incredible piece of very clever software that you start off with. What you then need to do before you run that is you need to insert your OS X disk, run disk utility, and follow some basic instructions that are in the article. And that's all about formatting your flash drive and copying across the Snow Leopard onto it. Then after you've done that, and there are very specific instructions about how to do that, then it's a matter of running the Netbook Boot Maker that does all the clever stuff for you. So that's all great. Once you've done that, then you're ready to actually start installing stuff. So what you need to do is you basically pop in your USB stick into your netbook, and you then boot from that. Okay, now you have to make sure that you're booting from the right from the USB drive rather than the hard drive. That means you need to go into the BIOS and make some changes. I know this is all sounding really scary stuff, but actually, if you just read the instructions and follow them, it's absolutely fine. Once it starts up, it does sit around for a while, and that can be a bit scary. You think that it's broken. It hasn't in actual fact, and will run absolutely fine. There is, however, a problem that wasn't in the Gizmodo article and caught me off guard, and that is that once I got the installation running and went through the initial stage, and it says, where do you want to install it? And I had a completely blank, no options. I couldn't install it anywhere, and it was like, shit, now what do I do? But if you go to utilities, run the disk utility feature within the installer, and basically format the hard drive, then it will appear and you can carry on with the install. So basically, everything went very smoothly, no major problems, a lot of waiting around, a lot of nail biting, but it did work. Where I did have a problem was right at the end. Because right at the end of the Gizmodo article, it says, hey, everything will work as you expect, everything's great. The only thing that's a bit crappy is the trackpad. What you need to do is go through this process, update the trackpad driver. Don't bother. The latest version of the netbook boot program that I mentioned earlier seems to have all the correct drivers and everything's working great. All you need to do is go into your system preferences, select trackpad and configure it as you want. And you can even do things now like you know, the two-finger scrolling and all of that great stuff. So I have to say, pretty good experience. I was generally very pleased with it. If you're going to use this out and about a lot, then you might want to upgrade the battery to a more powerful battery. I'm not going to. It's more for kind of slobbing around the house and stuff, so I'm not worried too much about the battery. Seems to run very well, seems to be great. What can I say? It's worked for me, and I hope it works for you too.